bridging the human-robot divide. They say smart firms are trying to find a way to meld the two abilities.
Our minds, one and together.
How do we train workforces for it?
It is one of these technologies that you learn by using.
The acceleration from 100 to 200 is not as fast as from 0 to 100. There's a difference between what we can technically do and what we can afford to do.
The mind meld. Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. AI, those two letters, now have at least some company leaders envisioning a world where soon bots and agents rule the workplace and humans are cast to the sidelines. Some have even openly pronounced layoffs or hiring freezes on a massive scale. But experts say that's precisely the wrong approach. They say smart firms are trying to find a way to partner with humans to meld the two abilities, human and machine, to reach new heights of innovation and productivity together. It's a challenge, but it appears to be the reality, at least for the near future. In fact, a Korn Ferry survey of 250 CEOs and board directors globally found that 82% of leaders say they believe AI will replace less than 20% of the workforce in the next 2 to 3 years. But how do you harness the best of each, the human intuition and creativity with the massive scaling of intelligence that AI can do? And are workers even able or willing to try? Nearly half of leaders believe their workforces will need substantial reskilling for AI. So today, let's take a unique look at the AI revolution, not about the removing people part of it, but about bridging the human-robot divide, something we've dubbed the mind meld. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. You can also read about this subject today as it's the cover story of our latest issue of Briefings magazine, available now at airports and online. I'm joined now by Brian Ackerman, Korn Ferry's head of AI strategy and transformation. Brian is knee-deep in conversations with company leaders about how they can best integrate AI into their workforces. So it's great to get his take on this. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Thanks as always. I think more eyebrow deep at this point.
That's true. I think that's true. Brian, I want to get something straight before we dive in deeper. Many people believe this whole agenda of AI was here to replace people. Wasn't that the main idea?
I don't know that was ever true outside the realm of science fiction. But look, the reality is that it is impacting roles and jobs. It's not meant to replace every human and replace it with an overlord. Certainly not.
So if I understand it right, it's not that AI can really come in and replace 100% of people or even of someone's role. It's that it can do part of it. That's what we're saying, right?
That's certainly part of it. The immediate consequence is typically not that an entire role can be replaced as is completely and the human comes out entirely. There's the possibility though, and the reality of this is that we have to keep revisiting that statement as AI evolves and as agentic AI becomes more powerful to make sure that calculus hasn't changed.
How do you think firms are going to redesign people's jobs to kind of mind meld, right? This human and AI capability. It's got to be a pretty enormous challenge when you think about all the millions of jobs we've had for dozens and dozens of years shifting. Is it as daunting as it seems?
You're right to paint this as a big change, and organizations really do need to treat it that way, including the voice of the individuals that are being impacted by all of this. And I think for the first starting point of this is the leaders themselves, asking and making sure and orienting them to not just have the perspective that this is a big change, but talking transparently and authentically to their organization about that change and what they think, even if they're not quite sure how it's going to play out. That's still a very powerful first step, because there's so much fear and uncertainty, especially at individual levels, about what AI is going to do to their job or their livelihood.
Please allow me. It will be easier.
Whoa, what are you doing?
Our minds, one and together.
That is a scene from the movie and one of your favorite shows, Star Trek, where Leonard Nimoy as Spock does a Vulcan mind meld with Captain Kirk. So, Brian, if this AI human mind meld is indeed the goal, how do we train workforces for it? It seems like a critical step, but 4 out of 5 employees don't use corporate training. They opt instead to learn AI on their own. So what can leaders do to better engage employees on this AI training front? AI
is one of those technologies that, whether you're a leader, you're an individual contributor, you're doing it on your own, you're doing the enterprise, it is one of these technologies that you learn by using. And so the question that's impacting organizations is, standing and watching a video or a podcast or attending a training course is just simply not the right modality to really learn in this particular case. The more organizations use AI to teach people how to use AI, think of an advisor, an agent that helps somebody take their job role and apply AI to it. That the act of using the tool to learn the tool, and then as close to the real world application of their job as you can get, seems to be really, really powerful and much more impactful way to learn.
Of course, it would be hard to expect workers to make really big strides without significant movement at the top. It makes a difference. But a Korn Ferry survey did find that only 9% of leaders had the combination of behaviors and experiences needed for the AI era, with most exhibiting this business as usual mindset. So what is holding leaders back from embracing this change? And what would you say to them to get them moving forward?
The pace of this change is definitely making leaders uncertain, and leaders don't like to be uncertain in front of their organization. So it's back to that. It's okay. It's authentic. It's transparent to be human. In this conversation is a point in that journey. Helping leaders recognize that there are elements of this transformation that look like the others that they've done before, whether digital transformations that we've all lived through, or a big external disruptive events like what we went through a few years ago. It gives the leader, I've dealt with this before. I know how to do this. And then lastly, there are things that are unique. So helping leaders understand that this pace of change means they're going to have to manage that ambiguity and risk profile directly and often, that even though it's always important to set a North Star and express a purpose as a leader in the organization, it dials up to 11 right now, because that's the anchor through uncertainty.
That's great. Brian, always really wonderful to have you on and to get your perspective on this really dynamic and shifting issue. So thank you for being here.
Thank you as always.
We've examined how to address this critical mind meld between AI and human workforces. When we return, we'll talk to a professor of AI at Harvard about some of the truly crazy things AI will be able to do in the workplace when it's working with humans. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
Many people will find that they're able to save multiple hours a day.
A new study finds that employees who use AI for work tasks save an average of 7.5 hours per week. And while few firms have decided how exactly to use and track that time, some HR pros suggest that giving back some of that time to employees rather than immediately filling it with more work could be beneficial.
More companies are saying goodbye to the traditional single CEO system.
Some high-profile firms have lately been deciding that 2 CEOs are better than 1. So far, only about 1% of the largest 3,000 publicly traded US firms are run by 2 chief executives. Experts say, however, that the current environment of rapid-fire disruptions has made firms more open to the idea.
Working more and not getting paid overtime.
New research finds that the average British employee works 18 additional days in unpaid overtime every year. One reason is that with technology replacing more jobs, those who remain have more to do. But experts warn that taken to an extreme, too much work could be harmful to mental health, not to mention unsustainable. For more insights from This Week in Leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode, The Mind Meld, AI and Human.
As you can see, we've had our eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson.
We've been talking about how companies are looking to meld their human workforces with AI. And now let's take a closer look at how the latest AI tools and capabilities will affect how work gets done. I'm joined by Mark Esposito, a professor at Harvard University's Berkman Client Center for Internet and Society. Mark is a globally recognized leader in the application of AI in business, who's spent a lot of time consulting business leaders on the latest AI tech, as well as its potential impact on their firms. Mark, it's really great to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, Jill. Pleasure to be part of this episode.
That last clip was from the movie The Matrix, where AI agent Smith interrogates Keanu Reeves. AI agents are finally here, and thankfully they appear to be far less sinister than the ones in The Matrix. Mark, you've talked about the potential of agents to change the game. So let's first take a step back and discuss how agents work, so everyone kind of has a level playing field there.
If you think about what prompting is still that the person behind the computer is kind of generating ideas by having inputs and then waiting for the machine to determine an output. And then we'll fine tune, we kind of bounce back and forth until we're happy with what we get. Now, the process of engaging with the large language model that is done by us could be delegated to a chatbot. And the moment that we delegate into a chatbot, that is a delegation of agency. That's why they're called agentic. So it's prompting without people in many ways, where the prompting got automated, and therefore you no longer need to have that level of oversight that happens when a person is prompting in front of one of the large language models.
It's going to be really fun when those AI agents can actually stand in for you and represent your thoughts. Do you think that's pretty far away, or are you seeing those experiments happening, I imagine, faster and faster? And do you see it within reach?
I think there's a difference, Jill, between what we can technically do and what we can afford to do as a society. I think a middle ground for this will be that within some very bounded task or extremely confined task, we might delegate decision making. For example, a board of director where I am delegating my vote to a bot, but I know already what is the content and I'm simply delegating for a specific function in that case.
How do I know that you're alive and not just a clever imitation of life?
How do you know if Thompson is alive? Or your daughter? What makes my clever imitation of life any different from theirs?
They're human.
That is a scene from the movie The Machine, where an AI researcher questions the humanity of an AI robot. This question of humanity has come into sharp focus recently, as 1 in 5 US and UK employers are now using AI to interview job candidates. Many experts fear that robots could let the best talent fall through the cracks. But you've taken an interesting view on the other side of this debate, that AI, in fact, will democratize the talent search like never before. Talk to me a little bit about that.
A lot of AI interviewing or recruitment that tends to be more representative of members of our community that usually would not really make it through a selection that is determined by a person. So we're really looking about AI recruitment being much more inclusive. There's been a paper out of Stanford who had done significant progress in collecting over 37,000 interviews. And the conversion rate is much more in favor of people that usually do not get a chance than if humans are in charge of that.
I want to end on an intriguing point that you make. We're always talking about the ever evolving nature of AI, but you raise this idea that we may actually reach the limit of what AI can do, potentially sooner than anyone expects. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes we think technology is infinite, but it's not. It comes to what it might be a structural end. So what I mean by that is that we might get to a point where the acceleration from 100 to 200 is not as fast as from 0 to 100. And so we might see this eventually slowing down, maybe plateau a bit, consolidate, phase out. So I think it's more the speed changing to a pace that is much more commensurate with our adoption rate, rather than this almost like a short of air and short of breath, right, experience that we have in some time with technology.
It's a very exciting space that we are all watching unfold now. Really appreciate you sharing your insight with us today on it. Fascinating.
Thank you for having me, Jill. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya and Zachary Dorr. And it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time.
I forget to disconnect it, and so I'll get on a call like this.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, Brian. There's something very wrong.